Welcome into the St. Louis Cardinals Daily podcast. My name is Andrew Teuscher, and I want to talk a little bit more about the aftermath coming out of the Willson Contreras trade to the Boston Red Sox, cover some of the details, and talk more about what that means for the Cardinals, specifically the rotation, our everyday lineup, as well as a little update on what Joaquir Fajardo is as a prospect, as with the trade, it's kind of initiated some new insights being done by some of the prospecting folks out there. But first, let's again look at the Willson Contreras deal overall. Willson Contreras dealt to the Boston Red Sox to be their everyday first baseman after they felt forced to do something on losing on the Pete Alonso trade. I'm not going to lie to you. I really thought that, one, there's no way that Chaim Bloom makes another trade with the Boston Red Sox. Like, at this point, it's a joke. Like, it's a meme. I'm all for it. It's not a joke in a bad way, but Twitter on the Cardinals Twitter right now is rolling with the St. Louis Red Sox everywhere out there, and justifiably so. A lot of new guys added. Even Dustin May was a Red Sox, outside of the trades themselves. But anyway, I thought he was going to be a New York Met. I thought the Pete Alonso fallout would be what led to him being on the Mets. Turns out the Pete Alonso fallout, it's reported that the Red Sox were really in on Pete Alonso, so the Alonso fallout helped land him on the Red Sox, which I am perfectly fine with in this case because it brought us back right-handed pitchers Hunter Dobbins, Joaquir Fajardo, and Blake Aida. I want to be clear. Some of the best things about this deal is not just the prospect return. Trades are not always made because you need to get a better player value back in return. It's not always just about player for player value. Other factors are included in this. This is why I think the deal was made. I don't think this is a home run deal by any means, but it made sense for both sides, which is why trades are supposed to be made. So the Cardinals bring in three pitchers. Joaquir Fajardo, who we'll talk about in a little bit, is supposed to be a guy with some great potential, but Hunter Dobbins is a dude who next year we will probably see actually making a big contribution to the St. Louis Cardinals rotation, which we'll start talking about here in a little bit. But it was most importantly a cash dump for the Cardinals. The 33-year-old former catcher, now transitioned to first base and playing a lot of DH, is a guy the Cardinals needed to move out of the way to make way for more playing time for more young players, eating up the DH and first base spot, which are positions that are easier to learn. So these are positions we could force players into as we want them to come up and play more in the big leagues. And we also got $36 million off of our books because we forked over $8 million with Contreras. So the Cardinals have sent over a ton of money to a $28 million total to the Boston Red Sox, but have cleared off even more money between the Gray and the Willson Contreras deals. And I think that makes a ton of sense for the Cardinals. The amount of money we're going to be saving, about $18 million between the next two seasons in this Contreras deal, makes a ton of sense for us to move off of, so that when we're ready to compete, instead of an $18 million Willson Contreras who won't be worth $18 million when we're trying to win, we can instead take that and spend it on bullpen pieces, rotation pieces that are more worth their while whenever we're actually ready to compete in 27 and 28 instead of just 2026. So I'm still on board saying the Cardinals could make this a quick turnaround. A lot of our young guys are ready to come up here sooner rather than later, but it's not going to be next year. And I think that's one of the reasons we had to move off Contreras and why I think the Red Sox are getting a good piece and why this trade made sense in general. But let's look at what this does for the Cardinals rotation. Hunter Dobbins is an MLB-ready pitcher through and through. He's not a guy with crazy great stuff. He does have a fastball that can get into the upper 90s, which is solid. It doesn't move a ton. It's a pretty straight-line fastball, but he struck out a lot of guys with it, and he's got some breaking pitches that make guys hit stuff into the ground and has some swing and miss potential. Let's see if we can work more with him on that. Obviously, a big delay in all of this for Hunter Dobbins is that he tore his ACL trying to field a ball at first base last year after having a nice debut first half for the Boston Red Sox with a low fours ERA. So Hunter Dobbins will factor in later. So the Cardinals updated rotation with that, though, and our depth pieces right below that are, as of right now, Matthew Liberatore is still projected to be our ace. Not your normal bona fide ace, but definitely our first best pitcher. Hopefully he takes a step up. Right behind them is Dustin May, who probably the only reason he's not projected to be the ace is that down season last year, as well as we have no idea how often this guy's going to actually be able to take the mound. Fingers crossed, it'll be more often than not. We've talked already about, we were seeing reports out about Dustin May putting on a ton more weight because it's not being talked about enough in Cardinals Twitter, Cardinals media, that Dustin May had an esophagus injury, meaning he had issues with his throat, so he couldn't eat. I mean, if anyone's had a sore throat, it's not the same as a life-threatening esophagus injury. If you had a mono or sore throat or anything like that, you know how much you don't want to eat like that. Well, imagine you have a life-threatening throat injury. You're not going to eat as much as you need. You're not going to have your stuff. And we saw Dustin May's fastball drop in velocity, and we saw his stuff plus drop because dude was not at full health. Hopefully we see him go up in health, and with his stuff, we'll get better with that. Andre Pallante is projected to be the third pitcher in this rotation. We're hoping we get first half Pallante, not second half Pallante. Michael McGreevy is looking on to build off of what he was doing last season. Frankly, he looks a lot like Hunter Dobbins. Him and Hunter Dobbins have a ton in common. Guys who are ground ball pitchers who are going to eat innings for the Cardinals and hopefully put up some quality starts that our young offense can break out and help us win games that way instead of. We'll wait for Liam Doyle to come up before we get guys that are ready to dominate ball games. We'll be a little bit from that. And then after that, Kyle Leahy, a guy who's coming out of the bullpen into the rotation, and we're hoping that he can be a guy the Cardinals, Ollie Marmol and Bloom are both very excited to see him in the rotation, thinks he can make that step. But after that, now Richard Fitts is our sixth projected starter who could very easily find himself in the rotation. Let's say Leahy's transition goes terribly. Let's say McGreevy isn't producing like we want, isn't taking steps up that he wants, and Fitts takes another leap, which very well could happen as he's a guy who has very little experience so far in the bigs as well. Maybe we're just done with the Andre Pallante thing. I could absolutely see that. If he comes out and gets shelled in the spring, adds nothing to his rotation, I could absolutely see Fitz taking his spot in the rotation. We're going to assume May, unless he gets hurt, and Liberatore, additionally, unless he gets hurt, will be for sure guys in our rotation. Outside of that, Fitz is a great depth to have, and that's why Hunter Dobbins makes a ton of sense too. There is a lot of opportunity for Dobbins and Fitz to get into the rotation whenever Dobbins is healthy because 3 through 5, no idea. Complete toss-up on if those guys work, if they continue to grow. Dustin May, we don't know if he'll be healthy at all. It's kind of a track record that he's not. So adding Fitz and Dobbins is will probably be the end of our adds to our rotation. I could maybe see another veteran getting added, and we'll probably make more trades. Still a looming trade with Brendan Donovan out there. Maybe we land a guy like Bryce Miller from the Seattle Mariners who's ready to start. Odds are it's going to be a minor leaguer who we probably won't see much of this year. So our rotation might be set. Something to look out for. Obviously, more could be done. But there's tons of guys in the minors that are ready to come up and compete for spots. If they have great springs, we could be talking about this rotation being a little bit deeper. Guys like Quinn Matthews and Gordon Crescefo are projected to be more contributors. As Crescefo already made his debut, Quinn Matthews projected to make his debut at some point this next year, and if he has a great spring, could be earlier than later. Crescefo projected to be in the bullpen, but who knows if things are looking good. He could grab another spot in the rotation. Tink Hintz, a guy we've heard about for a long time. The skinny little guy is projected to make his debut at some point this year. Cooper Jerpy, if he can come back towards the end of the season, coming off Tommy John, was supposed to be a big part of plans this season. And then there's guys who are lesser known that are projected to make their debuts in the bigs from our minor league system. Ixon Henderson, Che Win Lin, Bryson Moutz, and Luis Gestelman are also guys that could make their jump ups this year. So a lot of new names to learn in the Cardinals rotation. More guys to talk about. One thing to talk about coming off the Wilson Contreras deal is where Jokier Fajardo is in our prospect rankings. He was projected much, much lower in the Red Sox rankings because things hadn't quite been updated on most of these prospect pages. I always go to MLB.com for my prospect pages, but Baseball America, Fangraphs, also great spots for prospect rankings for those that are looking. He was somewhere in the 20s for those guys, but now on MLB.com, jumps up to number 9 in the Cardinals rankings. No, it's not because the Cardinals have a bad farm system. Ours is definitely better than the Red Sox at this point because we're literally taking their prospects and putting it in ours. So the Cardinals aren't just some bad farm system. It's that he's a 19-year-old pitcher who debuted for the first time and needed some updated stats on. So now he jumps up to number 9 in the Cardinals prospect rankings, which is great. It's a guy who has already been tagged, could be a mid-rotation piece. Great stuff. I'll read you again what MLB.com writes about him. More advanced than most 18-year-old pitchers, Fajardo needed just 6 outings before earning a promotion to Single A in 2025. He has thrown strikes throughout his pro career and commands his fastball well. He's a potential mid-rotation starter and will likely be given plenty of runway to reach his ceiling in what is now his third system. So if this guy keeps developing at the rate he is, we should see him in the next year or two, probably 27 or 28. But it's a guy that has some upside that we would love to see develop more. And since he's so young, a guy who could be transformed into a lot of different things. The last bit of this Wilson Contreras trade, the fallout of it, is what it does to free up spots for our young guys to keep hitting. And the best one that it's going to be freeing up spots for is the big biscuit, Alec Burleson. He'll now be the everyday first baseman. At least that's what Fangraphs projects, and almost everyone else here in Cardinals media is assuming that Alec Burleson will get to play at first base every day. And that's exactly what the Cardinals want. Alec Burleson should be a big part of what the Cardinals are doing going forward. He's our second best hitter now on the team, right behind Ivan Herrera, at least per our stats last year, assuming we move on from Brendan Donovan. But last year, he collected a 2.1 WAR with a weighted runs created plus of 124, a well above average hitter, that is. WRC plus being an average of 100 is an average hitter, and then above that, it means you're above average hitter, and obviously 124 is well above there. He had 290 last year, which is 15th in baseball, with a 343 on base and a 459 slug, just hitting 18 home runs. That's a part of Burleson's game that we would hope develops more. Now going into his age 27 season, I don't think we're going to get a ton more pop out of his bat. Maybe he's a 25 home run guy. I could certainly see that, but it's not going to be your typical first baseman that we're used to for the Cardinals, going back to Pujols. Matt Adams even back in the day hitting tons of home runs for the Cardinals. Brendan Moss, you guys remember him, first baseman for the Cardinals. But a guy who has some pop to his bat, some average for sure, kind of a more modern first baseman at that. And 69 RBIs and an 801 OPS for all of that. And frankly, we should see Burleson's WAR go up this year. His defense in the outfield, you look at the guy. You don't want to see that guy running in the outfield. He lost a lot of weight last year. Good for you, Big Biscuit. You're now a slightly smaller Biscuit, but you weren't meant to be roaming the Great Plains in the outfield. You were meant to be stopped there at first base. And I think that'll help his WAR go up. And I know we're not just chasing WAR. We're not just chasing numbers, but WAR is statistically what you're worth, your value to your team above replacement. And so it's just a good way of showing that his defense was dragging him down, put him at first base, and now all of a sudden you're not losing something in the outfield. The Cardinals are a better team with Alec Burleson at first base instead of in the outfield. I frankly don't think the Cardinals have lost a ton of wins on their ledger. I think Sonny Gray is the biggest loss. I don't think Wilson Contreras being gone is going to hurt the Cardinals that much. I do think he's a great hitter. He's probably going to be one of the better hitters on the Cardinals if he was here. But if freeing up days for Ivan Herrera to hit and for Alec Burleson to hit is going to be worth its weight in gold. So Cardinals keep making moves. We'll keep getting you updated here on the St. Louis Cardinals Daily Podcast. Again, my name is Andrew Toysher. Thanks for tuning in as we cover your Redbirds every single day.